Ah, greetings, salutations, and welcome to another mini documentary. This time about just one car, not a series, not an engine, any of that. This is about the original W202 C43 AMG. Let's go. Roll the intro with those 3 videos, please. Now. Okay, before we get going, we'll do a speed bump and a bit of housekeeping. So these videos are split into chapters. Hopefully they'll come up in your timeline or you can fast forward. We also have very cool fans, hi Josh, who put the timestamps in the comments. And what we have in this one, chapter 1 is a brief overview, basically what it is. Chapter 2 is a bit more detailed. That's the nitty-gritty specs, sizes, kilowatts, all of that. I've also included standard features, optional extras, market dependent, competitors, prices, colors, and stuff like that. Chapter 3 is pros and cons, so positives and negatives. Lots of speed bumps in this area. We're speeding. No. I always try and get that to 43. Shouldn't do that. Anyway, chapter 3 is pros and cons, positives and negatives. Chapter 4 is ownership, sort of buyer's advice. Should you buy one? Should I buy one? What sort of Cessnas flying above our heads? Stellenbosch Airfield is just a few kilometers or miles that way. And then chapter 5 is just a conclusion. And that's it. Let's go. What is a W202 C43 AMG? Basically, it's the sporty AMG version of the W202 chassis. The 202 is this shape C-Class, the very first compact sedan from Mercedes to be called a C-Class. It's from the sort of early 90s to the end of the 90s, and AMG is the sporty side. So AMG was an independent company, but they did such a great job that Mercedes-Benz bought shares in them, and then when they took over majority shares, that was in the early 90s, this was one of the products that resulted. However, this is the facelift 202, so every range of cars, just like this 202 series, has a mid-series facelift, which happened with these, I think, in 97. And this is the facelift AMG version, because the pre-facelift version is called a C36 AMG, or in South Africa, C36 AMG. We never got those. We never got these either here. The C36 was roughly made from 1994 to 97. It's got a 3.6 litre inline 6-cylinder engine based on the C280, and it is the pre-facelift 202. And it is officially the first post-merger AMG. After the company had merged with Daimler or Mercedes-Benz. They made slightly more C36s, about 5,200, but no S202. S202 is the station wagon form, so the C36 was only made as a sedan. However, the 36 engine was also used in the W124 and W210 E-classes and the W463 G-class. The 43 in this C43, the little V8, was only ever used in this car, in the 202, as a W sedan or an S estate or station wagon, and no other model series got this engine. The successor of this car is the W203 C32 AMG. That's a supercharged V6. And then later, when that was facelifted, it became the C55 AMG, which is a bigger and fruitier version of this engine. They made about 3,800, and hang on, they made 3,857 units of the C43 from apparently October 1997 to May 2000. Of those, 3,085 were sedans with the model code 202033, and 772 were estates with the model code 202093. All of these specs, by the way, come from the Mercedes-Benz public archive. Just Google it. It's amazing. It ends prematurely. They don't have the latest cars on there, but it is an archive. You'll find most of their cars on there, and quite a few interesting tidbits like production numbers. Sadly, the C43 AMG was not the top dog in the W202 range, because they also made a C55 in this shape. From about 1999 onwards, it cost an extra 57,420 Deutschmarks, which is insane. And I couldn't quite establish how many they made. The internet alleges 29 units. That is not confirmed, though, because Mercedes-Benz says they were not separately documented. They made a few estates of those as well, but they had the same chassis codes as a C43. And to find a real one is quite tricky, but I think they are worth quite a bit. Power, by the way, was up 30 kilowatts and 100 Newton meters extra. That is that 55 engine which wandered on into the CLK, the E-Class, and then later the C55. S also had it, non-supercharged. ML had it. Anyway, the 43 engine in this has 225 kilowatts and 410 Newton meters. It's less tuned than the M104 in the C36 AMG, because Mercedes basically just dropped in what was at the time the new Mercedes-Benz M113. That is a tri-valve twin-spark V8, and they just tuned it a little bit. Really just a tiny bit. It is a mild tune. These were only ever available with a 5-speed automatic and rear-wheel drive. We'll get to the key specs in the next chapter. And it's essentially a compact 90s sedan with a small but brawny V8, and it is the first ever V8 AMG C-Class. They have a body kit which is a bit more rounded than the C36. Maybe I'll put them next to each other. The C36 is more square in the bumpers and skirts, and the C43 is a bit more rounded. They've got uprated brakes, lower and firmer suspension, 17-inch staggered monoblocks. Those are alloys. By the way, I think they only ever came on this series of car. The most famous 17-inch monoblocks, later there were 18s as well on the E55, but the 17s only ever came on the 202s. Am I correct in saying that? If I'm wrong, please correct me. It's also got an AMG exhaust, quicker steering, apparently, I couldn't confirm that, a beefier gearbox, high-spec leather interior, and quite a few optional extras. And now we'll get to the detailed specifications. Yes, let's go. Okay, detailed specifications. This is quite obviously a 4-door, 5-seater compact sedan, souped up by AMG. The engine is an M113.944. It's a 4,266 cubic centimeter, or about 260 cubic inch, V8 petrol, tri-valve single overhead cam, twin spark. It's essentially the same engine as a 430 CLK, E-Class, S-Class or ML. In those, it had around 205 kilowatts at 5750 RPM and 400 Newton meters at 3000 RPM. In this one, it's now bumped up to 225 kilowatts at 5850 RPM and 410 Newton meters at 3250 RPM. It's a front-mounted engine, longitudinal 4-stroke petrol, 90-degree V8, light alloy block. It's got 89.9 by 84 millimeter bore and stroke, 10.1 compression ratio, manifold injection, an emissions control system with 3-way catalytic converter, blah blah blah, double roller timing chain, 1 overhead cam per bank, 2 intake valves, 1 exhaust valve in a V-shape hanging, computerized electronic fuel injection with hot film mass airflow sensor. It's a Bosch ME management system, and it redlines at 6300 RPM. Yeah, the successor to this was the C32, we've already said that, and the C36 was the previous one. I actually made a list of horsepower per litre, where you can see the efficiency of all the little AMGs, 8-cylinder, 6-cylinder, and now 4 cylinders. And then you can also see that these engines don't have to work very hard for a living, quite unstressed. It's a 5-speed automatic gearbox. That was the only choice, is the 722.6, apparently from an SL500, but AMG also apparently tuned it. It's a hydraulic torque converter with a lock-up clutch and a planetary gear set. Again, it was only ever available with a 5-speed auto and rear-wheel drive. 0 to 100 is supposed to take 6.5 seconds. Mine just did 6.48, which I'm really, really proud of. I published the video on its birthday, 18th of March, somewhere there, because it's got 162,000 miles on it, and it's still hit the number. In fact, the VMAX or top speed is electronically limited to 250 kilometers an hour. I could not determine if you can remove the limiter, and if you do, what would happen. The top speed, according to gearing, some sources on the internet say it would be about 270 kilometers an hour. The average fuel consumption, according to archives and road tests, is 7.6 liters per 100 at 90 k's an hour, 9.2 at 120, and 13.1 in town. I found another one which said 8.9 on the open road and 16.5 in town. And that averages out at 11.7 liters per 100. That sounds more like it. I'll try and put in the miles per gallon as well. It's got a 62 liter fuel tank in front of the rear axle. All of them do, station wagon and sedan. And they puff out 280 grams of CO2 per kilometer. 280 grams is quite a lot, but back then I think it was an EU4 engine. So the brakes apparently were taken from a W210 E55. And by association CLK55 AMG. The dry weight is 1,570 kilograms, and it can take a 400 kilogram payload. Width, height and length is 1,723, 1,387 and 4,516, so quite a compact car, especially by today's standards. It's got a 10.74 meter turning radius, a 2,690 millimeter wheelbase, and the tracks are 1509 at the front and 1483 at the back. The construction, it's a steel unibody with independent double wishbone front suspension, independent multi-link rear suspension. Both have coil springs and anti-roll bars. The alloys are 17 by 7.5J at the front, 17 by 8.5J at the back, and they take 225/45 tires at the front and 245/40 at the back. Summer and winter tires are different. We don't have harsh winters. We never use winter tires in Southern Africa, so I have no idea what they are. They're usually a bit thinner, aren't they? And then the US, I know on the E55s, they also like to oversize the back a bit. They might go to 55. There was a small update in the year 2000 where these cars got tip shift. Instead of this gated old school Mercedes-Benz gear selector, they got the one that goes down and then tips left and right to have some manual override or manual control. You'd also get a little gear shift indicator or gear position indicator next to the clock underneath the tachometer. The power steering column was possibly made electric, and all of this I think is market dependent, because in some markets they also got what we like to call starfish monoblocks. Those are the thinner, well, actually more rounded 5-spoke AMG monoblocks that came on the CLK. Let me know if that was a standard feature where you're from, or if it was an optional extra, because we never got the C36 or C43 in Southern Africa. We did, however, get throughout the entire 202 series body kits. So we got cosmetic tuning, and those cars had non-staggered flat monoblocks pre-facelift, and then facelift. Most of them, all the ones I've seen, had staggered starfish monoblocks. That's what we call them here. Sorry, we have other silly things. What are staggered in South Africa is called narrows and wides, which makes my toenails curl, because narrows are something you'd find in a canyon and wides does not exist. And a difference of 1 inch does not narrows. No, don't get me started. Anyway, I think that's about it. Let's move on to the next chapter within this one, which is prices. Prices. When these were new, according to the Mercedes-Benz public archive and a German brochure I found, in late 97 there were 114,425 Deutschmarks, which was a lot of money. A year later there were 115,420 Deutschmarks. Car and Driver in the US says the base price was 54,559, somewhere between 98 and 2000, and the price as tested, I think they had a red car, was 56,132, so it had a few options. Supercars.net says it was 52,750 when new, and Google AI says about 50K. Used prices are currently anywhere between $4,000 and $50,000. Yeah, so a ratty one is a couple of grand, and a really, really nice one, low mileage, super well maintained, is about what they cost new. Which is not bad, but that's a very widespread. This is according to classic.com and other used car database websites, between 4 and 50,000 US dollars or euro or pounds. On eBay, these go for anything between about 5,000 pounds for a bad one, 15, 20 for a really nice one. I haven't seen better than that. There is a beautiful blue one though currently for sale that I keep looking at, but I can't buy it because I already have one. You can't have two, can you? Next chapter, please. Okay, standard features. All of them were based on the Sport trim line. The normal 202 had Esprit, Classic, Elegance. Did they have Classic? Anyway, these are based on the Sport trim line. They all have ESP, which includes ABS and EBD, brake assist, and traction control, a very early draconian traction control. Automatic gearbox was standard. Climate control, in the 43s, all of them had climate control. A leather interior, we'll get to the colors later. 4 power windows, front power sport seats. They are powered. Even the little headrest, I think, also goes. But they have no memory. So it's powered, but there's no memory. So if your wife drives it, or your buddy, you have to readjust the seat. All of these, by the way, are what I could find in most brochures. German, I think I've got an American one as well. If it's different in your market or they changed it, which they do throughout the years, please let me know. As far as I know, power front sport seats were always standard on this. 2-stage heated front seats. So all C43s have heated front seats. Vented seats I've not seen. I don't think that was an option. Also, I've not seen a C43 that's missing heated seats. I have, however, seen the Japanese ones, because Japan is such a wonderful culture. It's missing the alarm sensor tow-away button, because they plainly don't need alarms or tow-away sensors. The front armrest box, this guy, that was standard. A through-load feature. That could be a regional thing though, because most of them I've seen can drop the middle bit or both the seats. A CD radio, that however is regional. So some got an Audio 10, others got, I think this car came with a Mercedes-Benz Exquisite, which is actually a Panasonic radio. Heated screen wash, makes sense. These were available in Australia and New Zealand. So you Aussies out there, let me know. Did you get the heated screen wash bottle? Do you have an element in there, like a kettle, to heat it up? Because plainly we don't need it in the Southern Hemisphere. And then a bigger alternator and battery. That's over and above a standard sport, what would have been, I don't know, a C280 at the time. Right, optional extras, again, market dependent. Metallic paint or designo paint was an option. The sunroof, this car has it, but I have seen them without it. Parktronic, this car does not have Parktronic. Rain sensing wipers, I thought they all had it, this one does, but apparently that was optional. Same with xenon headlights, I thought they all came with xenon, then you don't have the scroll wheel next to the headlight adjuster. Or headlight knob, but apparently it was an option in some markets. The two-tone interior was definitely an option. The rear sunshade, which I don't have. I think most US cars had that. Bose audio system was an option. Under-seat storage, which I don't think I have. Power folding exterior mirrors, I've got that, and I think most Americans complain that they didn't get it. Puddle lights in the doors, although that was on all facelift cars, wasn't it? Anyway, might be optional in your area, might have been. Alarm immobilizer tow-away alarm. I think in Japan that certainly was not included or not optional. A fire extinguisher, which either is missing or my car doesn't have. Doesn't come up on the data card either. Garage door opener, which is a regional thing. Usually the Americans have that. Rubber mats. And then in America and Canada, well, North America, you've got these beautiful carpets, which people are now remaking, which actually say C43 AMG. I think that was done on dealer level or on regional level for the American and Canadian market. I like those. Wish we could get them, but I've got right-hand drive. Auto dimming mirrors ×3, that was apparently optional. Manually adjustable steering column, I thought they all had it. This car does have it, but that was an option. The designo interior, so like orange or purple or something, the violet or something. What else is there? Oh yes, the sound options: radio, CD front loader, CD tape combination, APS nav, 8 speakers, cassette storage underneath the radio. I've seen quite a bit of that. CD shuttle in the boot, which this car had, and it's gone. Various mobile phone options, and in one brochure I saw Linguatronic, which is the voice command. Wow, that I'd love to see. If you have that, let us know. Mobile phone prep, a roof aerial, headlight wipers, which this car has. I love headlight wipers. They always break, but I love them. A ski sack, if it did have it, it's long gone. And then sun visors with illuminated mirrors. Yes. Right, let's get to the next one. Okay, colors. These are market dependent, quite possibly. Let us know in the comments what was available in your country, if you know for sure. In a 1998 US brochure, I see black, obsidian black, which is the metallic, glacier white, brilliant silver, and imperial red. Those were the only 5 color options. If there was anything else, let me know, please. What I've seen online is mostly silver and black, a bit of white, and then in the US, red, fairly popular. I've seen a couple. Aquamarine blue, which is my favorite 202 color, and I was actually considering wrapping this car in that color. There is one for sale currently on eBay as this is being filmed. Titanite red I've seen. And then 1 or 2 grey bluish cars. There's an Aussie car, an Australian one on the Wikipedia page, which is like a grey blue. What color is that? Is that zircon? Or is it linerite? Please let me know if you know for sure. And then of course there's the lapis blue one, or lapis blue, which was on auction some time ago. That is a very interesting color and I really like it. Okay, interior color choices. They were all full leather and black was the base spec. So the whole seat, everything is black. And then you have this white or silver with black. You could get blue and black, maroon and black, sort of a red, green and black, and violet and black, which is a sort of a purple. I've also seen designer yellow, teal, and orange. Hopefully I will have found some pictures and can put them in now. By the way, on the standard colors, so the white, silver, and black, or the red and black, the door pockets, these door inserts, the door cards, are not color coordinated. They're not the same color as the seats as they would be in a 210 E55 or a 208 CLK. They are always black, no matter what color seats you have. Although on the designer ones, I think I have seen it, and 1 or 2 people have that sprayed in the same color or dyed in the same color as the seat, which I quite like. Looks good. US cars, the interiors, I've seen full black, blue and black, and silver and black. I haven't seen the red or the green or anything like that. Friends in America, if you know for a fact that those were the only choices, let me know. Or if there were others available, please share it. I'd love to see it. Right, on to the next one. All right, next one, also a good one. Popular modifications. The most popular modification is a 55 swap, because the C43 engine is identical to the 55. The 43 engines are not as numerous, and when they do need repairs, it's quite expensive to recon them or recondition them. And much, much cheaper to just go to any scrapyard and find a 55, an E, CLK, SML, whatever, and it drops right in. There is hardly anything that you need to do. It's fairly easy. And yeah, my notes also say because of the 43's rarity and expensive refurb jobs, you may as well do a 55 swap. And you bump up the power and you really increase the torque, which then leads us to the second most popular modification, which is an LSD, a limited slip differential. Unfortunately, these cars didn't come with them, nor was it an option, because they've got traction issues. I like putting down a bit of rubber every now and then, and if it breaks loose, it's usually a one tire fire. And if you keep your foot in it, this car in Mexico will burn out first gear in one tire and then switch sides, and sometimes it'll bite you a bit or try and come around. So yes, an LSD, a limited slip differential, is a very good idea. I think one of the more popular makes is Quaife. Sounds Australian. What make is that? It is an option I am definitely considering, because like I said, when a friend of mine was driving the car in Mexico, it tried to eat him. The next one is a manual swap. It's very popular on the E55, the first generation 210s, and all you need is an SLK 320 or a Chrysler Crossfire. They are identical. 6-speed manual box, pedal set, slave cylinder. There's a bit of plumbing involved, and although it's a fairly standard swap, the gearbox bolts right on. You do need to have the ECUs reprogrammed, and there's some sort of trick you have to do with the automatic gear lever. I think you have to leave it in neutral and then hide it or bury it somewhere so that the car doesn't have its soft limiter and actually revs past, I think, 4,500 RPM. There are a few tips and tricks, but it is well documented, and a Google or YouTube search will make you much wiser about it. Yeah, it's a very popular modification. I was considering it for this car, but I already have space issues in here, and getting a clutch and a lever and everything, it might be even tighter. So, perhaps in the future, I'll think about it. Then quite a few people like to lower them. There are various brands. I'm not a fan. Lowering usually makes the ride even harder. And to me, the ride on this car is already quite firm. If it's your car, do what you like. And some of them, if you drop them a bit and you get the stance right and whatever, they look really, really good. People also like to put on bigger wheels, which gives you the same hard ride issue. I bought this car with 18-inch staggered monoblocks, and it was so uncomfortable that I drove around with couch cushions on the front seats until I got 17s on here. A more modern radio is a very good idea, because the old ones won't have Bluetooth or MP3 or streaming. I've got sort of a mid-level one. My dad was a Becker agent, and we've got quite a collection. So I've got a Becker Cascade, which has Bluetooth, telephony, but no streaming media. But it's good. It plays MP3s and CDs and DVDs and stuff. Tinted windows. Again, not my style, but if it's yours, that's cool. Big speakers, because it's your car and you can do what you like. I'm considering upgrading the speakers, because we'll get to that now. The Bose speakers don't last very long, and after 6.5 years of ownership, I opened one of the covers and it actually says Camtech. The Bose speakers were blown many, many owners ago. Does it decrease the value? As long as you keep the original parts to possibly reverse it, I say no. It's your car. They're not that valuable yet. Go for it. If you find a really, really nice one with low mileage, please don't modify it. Thank you. Next chapter, please. Okay. Competitors or direct rivals for late 90s sports sedans. We're not starting in the year 2000, because it all changed with the C32. We're sticking to the late 90s, which obviously includes the E36 and M3. I'm focusing on the EU spec. I only learned a couple of years ago that you poor Americans got some detuned version without independent throttle bodies. The whole point of an M3, an old 6-cylinder M3 or M5, is that it has ITBs, which the E36 M3 had. Initially it was a 3-litre with 210 kilowatts and 320 newton meters. Then it became a 3.2-litre with 236 kilowatts and 350 newton meters. Beautiful, metallic rasp, but an induction hull with those ITBs, high revving, 7,200 or more RPM. It's a much lighter car, which means it's faster and it's also more dynamic. It can do higher RPMs, and it's available as a manual. I know in the States they had an auto version. I don't think the proper EU version was automatic or even an optional automatic. They were all manual. My knowledge, 5-speed at first, and I think later 6-speed. Okay, good bits about an M3, as I already said: the handling, the sound, the RPMs, and the fun factor. It is just an amazingly fun car to drive. Bad bits, they've got VANOS issues, which is the variable valve timing. They like to wear out their bushing all over the place. They suffer from corrosion or rust, and the rear shock towers crack. And then in our part of the world, I don't know what it's like in yours, they are a bit common, or common, we would say, with a capital K, which would translate as uncouth or chav. Is that true in your area as well? Another direct rival is the Audi S4, the B5 model, which had a 2.7 litre twin-turbo V6 time bomb. It was supposed to be an engine with 194 kilowatts and 400 newton meters, but if you looked at it, it would explode, basically. But good stuff. It's quite an understated car. Also like this, it's a Q car. Not many people realize how fast they are. It's got quattro, so it's an all-wheel drive. It's an optional manual. There were automatics, but it was available as a manual, unlike this car. The bad stuff is that they also don't have value like these, and the cost of repairs, which are almost infinite, I believe. Just some of the issues they suffer from is turbos, turbo bearings, turbo vanes, ignition coils, ignition wires, gearboxes, just about everything, the cooling system, the timing chain tensioners, and valve cover gaskets, which, to be fair, the M113 also does. So an S4 is a great car, but it costs quite a bit to maintain. And then I thought I'd throw in the Volvo S70R. There were quite a few 70R versions, but the S70 applies time-wise. It has a 2.3 litre inline 5-cylinder turbo petrol, quite a legendary engine, 184 kilowatts and 350 newton meters. There was also an automatic version that had 177 kilowatts and 330 newton meters. That is the individualist choice. If the Merc or the Audi are too obvious, I think you'd go for the Volvo. You get that beautiful 5-pot sound and boost, which surprises most people. They were made as a 5-speed manual or a 4-speed automatic, front-wheel drive, but with a limited slip differential, except on the auto, I believe, from 97 to about 98. The V70R was from 97 to 2000. That had a 2.4 litre engine and a larger turbo with variable valve timing in the year 2000, which gives you 195 kilowatts. And some of them were 5-speed autos. I hope I didn't butcher that. Volvo fans, let me know. Next chapter, please. Let's do the pros and cons, and we start with the not so chocolate side, the cons. By now, these cars are quite old, and to find a good one might take a while or be almost impossible depending on where you live. It's got late 90s Mercedes-Benz quality, which is okay-ish, but it does demand constant maintenance. These cars, you have to stay on top of it, otherwise a snowball reaction starts and then eventually they don't work. Yeah, and then you've got hashtag M113 life, which is mass airflow sensors, throttle position sensors, leaky gaskets, blah, blah, blah. But a fairly robust engine, you just need to maintain it. Turn that down a bit. W202 life includes rust. I was going to make a joke about our wonderful climate in Southern Africa, but this is an ex-UK car, and we found holes, multiple ones where you could have put your fist through. So yeah, corrosion was a huge issue with these. The window regulators like to go out. This window was half wonky at some point and dropped in. Keys. Thank heavens it's a facelift car, so you can have the keys remade, but they do like to break. If you see tiny little cracks in your key, just buy a cover off eBay or whatever, a whole new shell. Transplant everything, you'll thank me later. One of the biggest problems, there are no more MB parts. Mercedes-Benz has very little backup in terms of parts, even for like regular servicing stuff. There are some great aftermarket suppliers. Get onto forums, get onto Facebook groups. I'm on a wonderful one called C36/C43 owners. There's a company called Heavy Footworks. They do quite a few custom items and things you can't get anymore. They like 3D print various parts. Oh yes, the front valance or the front grille, the bottom bit of the bumper, the middle bit. I'm going to put a photo in and put arrows on it because I'm explaining this quite badly. Those like to fall out and go missing, especially in America for some reason. And I believe Heavy Footworks remakes those. Then there's AMG tax. I once got a PPF quote for 70,000 Rand, just because I pulled up in a little AMG when it was actually, it should be half that, if not less. The brakes are more expensive than a standard one, the body parts, the exhaust, the monoblocks. Oh heavens. This car came without the monoblocks. I've just put the right set on. I had to get chaperoned into Evelyn Street in Katatura, which is on the list of the top 10 most dangerous streets in Africa, just to find monoblocks, because every Tom, Dick, Harry, Koos, Sipu, Jack, Jill and her bloody dog wants these on their 124 or their City Golfs or their Audis. They're just so popular. So good luck finding a decent set of monoblocks. Everybody wants to have the C43 look. And they are quite small or cramped by modern standards. Most cars these days are much bigger than these. They have decent spec, but there's no high-tech stuff like media, driver aids, all of that. The ESP is quite antiquated and draconian. If it gets hold of you, it basically shuts engine power for a few seconds. They are comparably numb to drive. It's quite a heavy feeling. It won't put up with hard driving or track use for very long. The steering is not as lively as some of those competitors. The handling is okay-ish, but it's like an older Merc, and the brakes don't last very long. So if you do fast track driving, I reckon about a lap or two, and you have warping, smoking or fading brakes. It much rather wants to cruise very, very quickly. Although it does have a firm ride even by today's standards. That's why I didn't like the 18s on this car. I loved the look, but I went back to 17s to have a bit more of a ride. And because of that, this car rattles a lot. It's got quite a few rattles. I'm trying to get rid of them bit by bit, but it's a hard ride and the cabin squeaks and rattles. At the moment I've got a squeak down there. I'm probably going to put one of my backup GoPros down there when I drive home to figure out what that is. You know when styrofoam rubs on plastic? Really, really annoying. I want to find out what that is. The lights are fairly terrible by today's standards, ditto for the sound system, and the Bose speakers, as I said, were blown years ago. The fuel consumption around town is woeful, but it can be okay on the highway with a light foot. But you're not going to drive like that. I think I've had about 10 litres per 100 or 10 k's per litre if you really, really behave yourself, but you don't want to in a car like this. The fuel tank is quite small. 62 litres is okay, but not for a V8. The boot or trunk is also quite compact at 430 litres, but it does have a full-size spare in there. The folding seats were optional and were certainly not available in South Africa. That is quite a handy thing to have. I've had quite a bit of luggage and even a bicycle in here. Oh yes, the engine star on the engine cover, that will fall off. It doesn't matter what you do, it doesn't matter what sort of mileage you have, unless you don't drive it. I think through the heat cycles, the glue and all the little bits fade and it falls off. On that Facebook group, I asked around and I did a poll, what are the worst things in people's opinions? And in order of importance, parts availability, rust, vacuum system failure, the transmission failures, and the miles per gallon, or the fuel economy. The second worst thing to me about a C43 is that the badge was abused, because when they got the 205 out, the C43 with the V6 bi-turbo petrol engine, why did they call it a 43? Why didn't they call it a 32? That was a V6. I don't get it. By the way, if you're interested in a comparison, we've got a video, and I think a short, somewhere on our video, it should show up, or on our YouTube channel. We compared all three models, all of them silver and all of them sedan. And then the worst I've kept for last, it's the gearbox. nobody can explain why. The 722.6 gearbox is fairly bulletproof. It was sealed for life. That was a mistake. Most workshops and independent mechanics will tell you by now to service it, to flush it, to give it an oil change every now and then, and that'll keep them going. We had just done this on my car, and the gearbox broke. I had no more gears and crunchy noises, and unfortunately I never photographed the damage, but we had to redo the planetary gear set and everything. We had to refurbish the gearbox. And I believe the failure rate is as high as 75%. So 3 out of 4 of these cars will lunch their gearbox at some point, even if you treat it beautifully like I did in the last couple of years. Still let go. By the way, one of the telltale signs apparently is if it bounces off the limiter between shifts, especially first to second. When you get a little bub, 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 that means the gearbox is on its way out. Right. I think we go to the pros, hey? Okay, pros or positives, because my GoPro was overheating just now. It's an old AMG, so it's got raw brute power in an old, no-nonsense, quite understated Mercedes body. It's a beautiful recipe, at least in my opinion. It has no turbos, no intercoolers, no high-pressure injectors, no air suspension, no brake-by-wire, and no fragile DCTs, although it does have a gearbox that likes to go. It's a late 90s Mercedes-Benz, so it has no biodegradable wiring harness. That affects the C36 rather than these. You just have to shop around for parts, and they are fairly easy and cheap to keep going. If you have a parts supply and if you hoard a couple of service items, then these cars will go on forever. It's also a late 90s car, so like I said, it's got the 3-button key or remote fob, and that is fairly readily available. How's our temperature? Very good. These cars can do astronomical mileage, and they still run well. I mean, mine's done 162 something thousand, and it hit its 0 to 100 kilometer an hour claim. It's got a few rattles. It's got quite a few electrical issues here and there. At the moment, I've got a battery drain. But these cars, I almost want to say they don't die, even when you thrash them and abuse them. I'm sure you've seen legit street cars. He bought the cheapest one for like $200, and that poor thing was hardly running, but it just wanted to go. It kept going, and it was amazing. If you haven't seen that yet, legit street cars, C43, it's a black one with lots of Bondo or body putty, and amazing that car actually still went. Can't believe it. And then, of course, the people who know, they know these cars. I drive around, it's not my daily, but I do drive every now and then someone will come up and say, is that a real one? Also because we didn't get them. So if someone sees them, they approach me with big eyes, and then usually they ask, how much? I've got 2 people already serious about buying this car. I'm not ready to sell, though. Sorry. And then the W202 is often accused of being boring. Well, this one isn't. If you drive one of these, it's not your grandma's Merc. It definitely has a naughty character to it. In fact, my mechanic calls this the naughty car. I love the sound, that gruff, deep, slightly hoarse M113 sound. I might put in some clips now. Beautiful. And then when I got the car, it had a K&N air filter, or filters. It had a bit more of a howl. I really, really liked it, but we were going through mass airflow sensors quite a bit because of that oil that contaminates the mass airflow sensors, so you have to keep buying those, and eventually we took them out. So now we've gone back to standard air filters with this car. Doesn't sound quite as nice, but we're hoping to get a longer life out of the MAS. The torque is one of my favorites. In this little body, it's just so effortless to pick up speed. And to overtake, my goodness, you don't really need to redline it. You just need to gently squeeze the throttle and the torque will pull you through. It's brilliant. And then, of course, the power. If you do redline it, this thing really goes. 0 to 106.5 seconds is still good by today's standards. Yeah, that's it. Next. Okay, quickly, before the GoPro overheats again. Should you buy one? Well, that's up to you. I didn't have much of a choice. My first proper car was a C280 pre-facelift, and my mom had just bought herself an E430, which I love so much. I keep a register of them. I've owned one. I keep track of them. I think they're some of the best cars ever, and the combination comes together in the C43. It was one of my dream cars, so when I found one on New Year's Day and my parents' Land Rover was overheating, I confronted the owner. If you're interested in the whole story, I might actually make a video of how I found this car. I've also documented its restoration process, so maybe at some point, if I ever find the time, I'll do that. There's only a handful of these in Southern Africa, so when I found this, I took it, and I'm so glad I did, because it's got exactly the spec as I wanted. Partly functioning headlight wipers, sunroof, no PDC, love it, or Parktonic. Okay, we may as well continue with the conclusion. I really hope that this is not only watched by owners, and I've done the cars justice, but that it's watched by people who in two minds about getting one, and possibly that this video convinces you. The C43 AMG, the W202, is a compact sports sedan with a slightly staid or boring Mercedes-Benz underpinning. It's not the most agile, but it's very brawny. And like I said, and my mechanic agrees, it's a bit naughty. It's a naughty 90s Merc. It's fun. I really enjoy driving and owning this car. It's the first ever V8 C-Class. It's one of the original or OG post-merger AMGs. Someone alleged that it's the first to be built in Affalterbach, but I cannot confirm that. I was on a tour of Affalterbach, but the tour guide was so inundated he didn't answer questions, and I think he sideswiped me with a C32 or something. Google AI currently says that the engine was built in Affalterbach and the cars were assembled in Bremen, which I think the data card or the code also confirms. If you have any information if these were built in Affalterbach or not, please let me know. They are fairly simple and easy to maintain. You have to keep a hand on them though. If something breaks, you better start fixing it. I've just noticed, yes, my outside temperature gauge now says 58 degrees Celsius. So that's just broken or fallen out of its mounting. It's an undercover car, so it's like a Q car. They're not as obvious and not as popular or pricey as the M3 and company. It's also not as dynamic, but it is an absolutely brutal county or country crosser. This thing just eats miles. If you find a good one, or go for it if you can afford it, or you find a decent one and fix it. The bad ones can be saved, but will cost you big dollar signs. I can confirm that. This is one of the most expensive cars I've ever owned, because so many things were wrong and it was so neglected, and I'm still not done. And I hope it appreciates it, because I love this little car, but it has torn me a few new orifices financially. And that's about it. If I've forgotten anything, I'll probably go to voiceover. Please let me know what you think of these. If you have any others, there are a few cars I still want to do. If you have any suggestions, please put them in the comments below. Keep your hands on the wheel at all times, and see you on the next one. Bye.